now I'm going to jump into the thing most of you are probably here for, and I just spent almost 30 minutes delaying before we actually got to it. The power rankings for the UFL this offseason, according to me. In 8th place, I have San Antonio. Reason I have San Antonio dead last in the power rankings is all of these teams, I would say, got better from last season's performance, obviously, because there's more talented players in the league, in a smaller league. So, of course, all of these teams, I think, got better. It's just San Antonio, I think, is the team that got better the least, per se, I guess. I mean, San Antonio's most flashy signing was a kicker, and not even just their most flashy signing was a kicker. The most flashy signing was a kicker in a league that kickers don't even see that much playing time in. So, yeah. Along with that, I mean, every team in the UFL right now has a pretty good quarterback, in my opinion. And San Antonio's quarterback battle right now is they don't have a clear-cut starter yet, but their quarterback battle is between the top two front runners being Quentin Normandy, who was with the Orlando Guardians last year, who played decently when he was on the field. He was the quarterback who started when the defender, when the Guardians got their one win versus the DC Defenders. That's why I got the names mixed up for a second there. But Quentin Normandy was not ever really good, but he was all right when he was on the field. And along with that, he is competing with Tom Flacco, Joe Flacco's brother, who went to Towson for college, and he was all right there. Tom Flacco, while at Towson, he threw for 3,237 yards in 2018 and then 2,831 yards in 2019. And in that 2018 season, he threw 27 touchdowns to 11 picks. 2019, it was 22 touchdowns to 6 picks. So he was all right at Towson. Towson's not exactly a very highly ranked school, but he was all right there. So Tom Flacco could be pretty good. We don't really know yet. I've never really seen Tom Flacco play before, but he does have the name advantage as he is related to a Super Bowl champion NFL quarterback. So talking about, people paying attention to the league because of big names, that's another one. If Tom Flacco ends up starting, some people might be like, Tom Flacco? Oh, I know his brother, Joe Flacco. Let's see how his brother does in a spring league. Someone's probably going to say that if he ends up starting. So I think that's pretty important, personally. But aside from the quarterback situation, I mean, San Antonio's defense is pretty good. I just don't see their offense being that incredible, personally. Because, I mean, no matter who starts at quarterback, I mean, I just don't think their offense is going to be that good. Their defense is probably going to get a lot of stops, but I feel like it's just going to be a situation of, the Pittsburgh Maulers and the USFL the last season, where, their defense is really good. It's just their offense. It took the Pittsburgh Maulers, 3 weeks to score an offensive touchdown. I just don't think their offense is going to be that talented, honestly. Next up on my power rankings in 7th, it is going to be the Arlington Renegades. It feels really weird to rank the reigning XFL champions this low on the list, but I kind of like the Brahmas. I think they got better. I just don't think they got as much better as everyone else. And I feel like first we got to bring up, they still have their quarterback from last season, Luis Perez, on the team, but it's not even clear if he's going to be starting exactly, because they also brought in Lindsey Scott at the quarterback position as well. And a lot of people do suspect that he might end up being the starter. So we don't really know how that's going to work out. I think Luis Perez should still be the starter, if you're asking me. I mean, he just won the championship last season and was really good. But Lindsey Scott could also end up starting. Aside from the quarterbacks, though, I mean, they just don't really have that many, jump out at you players on the roster, personally, if you're asking me. They do have some, they have Donald Payne on the roster for the defensive side of the ball. If you are unaware, he was the 2022 USFL Defensive Player of the Year. And he was really good for the Gamblers, so on a team that was not very good overall, as they went 3-7, but he was really good for the team. But along with that, they also have Vic Beasley on their roster, so he should also be really good on defense. I feel kind of like San Antonio. Their defense looks pretty good on paper, and their offense could be good. We have the question mark at quarterback of who's going to start there, but surrounding the quarterback, I just don't think they got that many offensive weapons, personally, to really help out their offensive situation. Also, side note thing I just want to bring up, they have Marquette King on the roster at punter. I just want to bring that up because I like punters. Next up in my power rankings, in sixth place, I have the Michigan Panthers. Um, Michigan as a team, I feel like they're not going to be terrible. They're just going to be pretty mediocre. I'm thinking like a 4-6 season for Michigan. Uh, First, I know I talk a lot about quarterbacks, but I always like starting with the quarterback of the team. Pretty important position. Um, their quarterback going this season, EJ Perry, who we'll see, he was pretty good in the 2 games he played last season. The 2 games he played last season were probably the most 2 important games of the Michigan Panthers season last year, with the game to get into the playoffs and the playoff game. And in those 2 games he did play, he played very well. We're just going to have to see if he continues to play at that high of a level, because if he does keep playing at that high of a level, they could be a better team overall. We just don't know if that's going to be the case. But along with EJ Perry, they got Reggie Corbin at running back still, and also Matt Colbert from the Stars, who in limited play is pretty good. Both of the USFL seasons he played for the Stars, he always started the season pretty slow, but he picked up by the end of the season. So I feel like Reggie Corbin and Matt Colbert should be a pretty good duo at running back. And also, at receiver, they have some more former stars. They got Devin Gray and Terry Wright. And along with that, they also got Jordan Sewell, a third former star. They just took all the stars receivers for some reason. We did have some pretty good ones, though, I will admit. But also Marcus Sims. So I feel like their offense, if EJ Perry can play well, their offense can be pretty high powered. And also Frank Gidna on defense, rating defensive player of the year. I just don't know if anyone else on their defense is gonna, pop out at you. Like they got Frank Gidna, they got Breland Speaks, but like I feel like there's a lot of holes on the defense aside from those 2 players. So the Panthers, depending on how well EJ Perry plays and if their defense steps up, they could definitely rise in these power rankings. I just trust the 5 teams above them more, personally. And that will take us right into our 5th spot, the Houston Roughnecks. I think the Roughnecks are going to be pretty good. They have a pretty good roster on paper. Starting with the offense, they got the rating offensive player of the year at running back in Mark Thompson. And they also have rather talented receivers in the 2 Isaiahs on their team, Isaiah Henny and Isaiah Zuber. Now, their question is more just, how good will Reed Sinnett be for this offense? Because I'm not saying Reed Sinnett's going to be bad. I just feel like the 4 teams above them all have set in stone. We know they're good quarterbacks, that's why I can't really rank Houston any higher. Mainly just because we don't know how good Reed Sinnett's going to be. So I trust in the teams above this, like Memphis, DC, Birmingham, St. Louis. We know their quarterbacks are really good, so it's more just a question mark. Again, like Michigan, they could very easily go higher in these rankings when the season actually starts. But for right now, I have them in 5th because their offense, aside from the question mark at quarterback, the offense is pretty good on paper. The Roughnecks defense has never really been a joke. The defense for the Roughnecks has always been really good. They had the defensive player of the year 2022. And, they still have Chris O'Donnell on the defense. He's always been really good. So, the Roughnecks defense should be good. Their offense could be really good. Just depends on how well Reed Sinnett performs. Also, just keep in mind, if Reed Sinnett performs poorly, you will see Mark Thompson on Twitter talking about how he wishes he could play quarterback and running back. I'm just telling you now. 4th place on my power rankings, I have the Memphis Showboats. With their almost not entirely new-look offense, but pretty new-look offense, they got at quarterback now. They have my favorite spring football player, Case Cookus, at quarterback. Also at running back, they have Darius Victor. Big addition, really good for the Generals. They did go 3-7, but he was the offensive player of the year for the USFL back in 2022, and was still pretty good for the Generals 2023, despite the team's poor record. Along with that, at receivers, they got Vinny Papali, they got DeAndre Overton. Case Cookus and DeAndre Overton already have a bit of connection from their previous time with the Stars. The last Stars touchdown that will be scored for the time being was actually Case Cookus to DeAndre Overton in that Week 10 game versus Michigan. That's pretty cool. So, Memphis' offense should be really good, and their defense could be really good. It just more depends on how well their players, play. Wow, that's such insightful commentary for me right there. If their players are good, the defense will be good. Wow, incredible. On the defensive side of the ball for the Showboats, they have Jordan Ferguson, Vontae Diggs, and Christian McFarland. All very good defensive players. I just don't think their defense is going to be as good as the teams I have above them. Their offense, though, should be very high powered. I also somehow completely forgot to mention Derek Dillon when I was going through their wide receivers. So, like, they have a very high powered offense. And also, I haven't really mentioned coaches yet, but also new head coach, Todd Haley's out, Larry Fedora's in. Todd Haley was not a great head coach. Larry Fedora is, proven to be a pretty good head coach. So, the Showboats should be pretty good. Next up on my power rankings, I have the St. Louis Battlehawks. If this power rankings list would have been made a couple days ago, St. Louis would have been much further down. But as you know, because I mentioned it earlier in the show, obviously, A.J. McCarron is back for the Battlehawks, which shot them up this list, in my opinion. So aside from A.J. McCarron, they still have very good receivers on offense in Hakeem Butler, Jaquir Pearson, and Darius Shepard. And, the only area I see their offense struggling is they don't really have a very standout running back for their team. But aside from running back, their offense should be stacked. And on the defensive side of the ball, St. Louis is stacked on that side too. They got Freedom. I still can't pronounce that guy's last name to this day. At defensive end, they got Kevin Atkins. They got Drayvon Askew Henry, Nico Bolden. All of those guys were very good for the Battlehawks last year. So I'd imagine that, unless they somehow got worse, so the Battlehawks defense is going to be really good. Their offense also going to be really good. I just feel like, two teams above them, it's more the defensive side. I think the Stallions and Defenders have better defenses than St. Louis, and also the running backs too, because St. Louis, in my opinion, they don't really have an amazing running back, so that's why they're ranked third, below our final two teams. Coming in second is the DC Defenders. This Defenders team is loaded at about every position you can imagine. On the offensive side of the ball, we have Jordan Teamu at quarterback. He was the Offensive Player of the Year in the XFL last year. Along with that, we have the reigning XFL number 1 overall pick, Abram Smith. And then at wide receiver, they got Chris Blair. They got Lucky Jackson. All of these guys are very good on offense. Defensive side, they're just as stacked with David Bellamy. They also got Michael Joseph, and coming over from the Pittsburgh Maulers, they also have Boogie Roberts on this defense now. So this defense, they can stop the run, they can stop the pass. I don't know what they can't stop. The DC Defenders could very easily find themselves back in the championship game, just like last year. It more just comes down to, can Jordan Teamu play at his maximum potential for the entire season and not just stall out in the championship like last year or the first 3 games. So, yeah, the DC Defenders, very good team. Not even being biased as I am a Defenders fan. They are just actually really good. But number 1 on my power rankings, how could it be anyone else? It is the Birmingham Stallions, the back-to-back USFL champions. Starting off at quarterback, they have Jamar Smith starting most likely. That man has proven he can win games. He has only ever lost 1 as a starter. But even after Jamar, they got CJ Marable coming back as running back. He was a very good running back last year. 525 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. He was 4th in the league in yards, tied for 6th in the league of rushing touchdowns. Also had 235 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. And as a returnman, too, he had 319 kick return yards. He was very good as a running back and returner for the Stallions. And then we got to get into the wide receivers, because they got the reigning USFL Championship MVP in Dion Kane returning, along with Victor Bolden coming back. They also have previous defender Chris Lacey coming to the Stallions. And then we got to get to the defense, in which they have Chris Orr, and they also have the 2022 USFL interceptions leader in Channing Stribling. Can't forget JoJo Tillery at safety. He was really good. And you think I was going to leave this guy out of the defensive rundown? Of course I'm not. Scooby Wright, who's actually going to be playing this year instead of being stuck on IR for almost the entire season. So, the Stallions team, very scary. Along with even their backups are scary. I'm just looking through the roster now to fact check stuff. I also forgot to list off Bo Scarborough for the running backs too. So, CJ Marable and Bo Scarborough, quite a scary combination. So, the Stallions, I don't know if they're going to go undefeated this year. I mean, they almost did 2 seasons in a row. I actually don't think they're going to go undefeated. I just said I didn't know if they were or not. I don't think they're going to go undefeated. I could very much see them in the running to get their 3rd straight championship, though, because that team is stacked beyond belief. It is almost, as you call it, a super team. So, yeah, Birmingham firmly number 1 in the preseason power rankings.